This broadcast is the property of Codependents Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependents Anonymous is not permitted.
various websites that are part of the CoDA fellowship. Today's event is featuring a story from Meeting in Print, which is part of the Co-NNections part of CoDA. These documents are posted on the CoDA website, and that looks like this. And a link to this page at CoDA.org will also be posted in the chat shortly. Today, we will be listening to a story. James, will you be reading, or is there someone here to read the story for us? Do you know?
I don't see any members of the committee, so
Right.
it was decided between me and somebody on the committee that it would be best to post it and let the people read it, and I'll work around it that way. So you'll have to. Can we expand March?
Yes. I just wanted to show what people will see when they go to that website. I am going to go to the March story. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you if you would like to do some more introductory material about Meeting in Print at CoDA.org. Okay?
Okay, David. What started it out was I found the Meeting in Print, and I read one of the, actually it turns out that it's a poem, and it really touched my heart. So I went home and I wrote my own poem in response. And I was so amazed that the layout of that poem was exactly the way the way I perform a poem. They said a lot about themselves, and then it just leads into a poem. So what I need you to do is I'm going to read this, and then we'll put the poem up. When it came time to rent an apartment, I had to leave my marriage for a little while. I just walked into the rental office and I took a 1-bedroom down the hall from my friend. I had been picking my friend up and taking him to the meeting. I remember telling the agent I was tired of being my wife's punching bag. So all the memories came flooding back when I read this share. And it was called Emotional Punching Bag. If you could put that up, David.
Okay. I'm going to just give me a minute.
I was going to read it, and then we decided it wouldn't be appropriate. And I didn't feel in my heart it was appropriate unless Hannah could come and read it.
And while you're reading it, I'll be putting some links to the fellowship forum recordings and to this story in the chat, or to the Meeting in Print website in the chat. So let me get that up on the screen for you now, for us. All right.
So I have to ask, is Hannah, who wrote the poem, did she come today?
I'm not seeing Hannah in the meeting.
I don't know. You know how names are. Okay, we're going to just scroll down very slowly, and I want everybody to read the poem. That's the only way we could make this work.
You want to start whenever you're ready?
Now I want
Want
people
to-
to read it, David. They have to read it. I can't.
Okay.
I can't perform it or read it.
Did you want anyone to read it out loud or just read it silently?
I want everyone to read it silently if they would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, David. All right, David, I'm going to read a poem that I wrote after I read that. It's called Finding the Threads of My Recovery. I attend the meetings each week and read the truth. I read it over and over again. I'm told to keep coming back because it works when you work it, and meeting makers make it. The Serenity Prayer is my mantra. I realize now that my father gave me the skills to survive in this world, but my sister and my mom gave me the heart to accept the things I could not change, or I could change. I cannot change the past, but now I must accept it. The truth I was taught as a child that stayed there in my heart is what gave me the strength to change the things I could. I hope that over time, my truth, or what is true about me, will finally emerge. As it says on the back of the workbook, to thine own self, be true. But I wonder, how can I be true to myself? It says in the preamble, we gather together to share our journey of self-discovery. And we become honest with ourselves about our own personal histories and our own codependent behaviors. Along the journey, I have picked up threads of truth and began to weave them into my garment of recovery, like a winter coat or vest that protects me from the elements. But in this case, the elements are fear, rage, shame, and guilt. Feeling less than or more than. I keep the wind at my back and my collar turned up. I know if I stop, life will surround me. So I pull my coat around myself. The truth will set me free. I have found this in so many ways. the truth I seek, the threads I find, this code I have made, all are becoming part of who I am. I remember when I started, how good it felt to finally be free. I lost weight. I went to the gym. I regained my eyesight. I got my own car and leased an apartment. I bought a bike, and I remember not wanting to put the brakes on because the feeling of speed and freedom was so overwhelming. I'm finding that my recovery is also a living thing. The people I needed always materialized and supplied exactly what I needed. I've been given so much, but now I am the one showing up. They look at me, and I can feel their need. You see, I am wearing this coat made up of all the threads I picked up along the way. They can see the coat. They pull one of the threads, but my life doesn't come unraveled, but keeps getting stronger. But I cannot rest because there is always the next destination. And I realize why I didn't want to put the brakes on, as my fear gives way to hope and my ambivalence turns to love. I'm beginning to learn throughout my recovery journey that it is not what I aspire to, plan, or even want, but what I allow that changes me. I pray for my higher power's will, and then I plan to recognize it and allow it into my life. I'm finding that each day can be different and new and exciting. That's the end of the poem. I'd like to talk about poetry. The American poets designated April as National Poetry Month. Research has found that writing about emotional themes improves our immune system. It can also reduce stress, anxiety, depression. Both the experience of writing and reading poetry can have a powerful healing effect. Poetry inspires us to dive deep into our emotional depths, allowing us to more easily put words to what's happening within. When dialoguing with others, words can be hard to find, let alone speak. But when we sit in a quiet place, pick up a pen, we create space for our feelings to flow through us, connecting with our heartache, our grief, gratitude, or joy. As Audre Lorde said, poetry is not a luxury, it is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of light within which can predicate our hopes and dreams towards survival and change, first made into language, then into ideas, then into more tangible action. Poetry is the way we help give name to the nameless so it can be thought. So this week, as an experiment, try to connect with your own poetic voice. Explore how healing the act of writing can be. And if this feels intimidating, drop all judgment or the need for perfection. It doesn't have to rhyme or sound pretty. Simply use writing as an entry point to explore your emotions. You can start by answering questions such as, what scares me? What scares you? What saddens you? What delights you? What are your hopes and dreams? Use these questions as prompts, then allow whatever words arise to flow through you. As Robert Frost said, poetry is when emotion has found its thought, and then thought that's found words. So if you have something stuck in your head or heart, pick up a pen and try writing. My writing and sharing with others have helped me grow and change. And if you write something you think you would like to share, send it to the Connections Committee to be published in the weekly readings or meetings in print. Just go to CoDA.org, click on the Connections dropdown, and select Submit a Story. Submit your story. And some of my journey through this was wondering about permissions and how I felt in my heart when I was going to read someone else's poem or story. I couldn't do it, and I worked with the committee to try to work that out. I love poetry. I love to write it. I love to read it. I love to present it. And that's about it for what I wanted to present today, David. Thank you for your help.
James, thank you for bringing this topic to the meeting and also for reading your poem for us today. So first thing I'm going to do is post some links in the chat that people might be interested in seeing. Of course, you can save the chat to your hard drive by clicking the three dots in the bottom of the chat box, the ellipses, and saving to your hard drive, save chat, so that you can review these links at your leisure. The other thing I want to post in the chat are the links to meetings in print, are the story that we shared, and also the link to the Co-NNections area of CoDA, which is part of meeting in print. And then I think I'll open the meeting up to people to share their experience, talk about journaling. Perhaps other people have written poems about their experience coming into the program of Codependence Anonymous. Who would like to begin? Have you ever visited the meeting in print or Co-NNections area of CoDA.org? If you have, would you like to tell us about your experience at these with reading about CoDA and codependence? I know one meeting in particular that at least once a month reads a story from Co-NNections at their meeting. Has anyone had an experience of reading stories from Co-NNections at your meeting?
This is Marilee, recovering in Northern California.
Hi, Marilee, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm on my phone. I am not feeling well. I took a COVID test this morning and I passed, all positive. So, little change of schedule here happening. So I'm grateful to have read the poem and then heard the responsive poem. And I do find that writing poetry is a wonderful way to get in touch with not only the feelings, but sort of the thought process that puts it together and helps me make sense of what I'm feeling more clearly than what I might have been aware of had I not started writing. And sometimes it's poetry and sometimes it's prose, and it kind of doesn't matter, and it comes out however it comes out. There's a sense of, what do I have control over and what don't I have control over? And where are my choices in this situation? And that, I think, applies generically to everything. But seeing it is the key. Not getting the brain locked up and actually being able to process, which is what the writing helps with so much, is engaging the brain again. there's so many emotions that swirled within me, with both the written original offering and then the read offering. And it just feels like, just stop right here and just let me write, because there's a whole bunch of stuff floating around. It's a rich material for sure. So I want to thank you for offering this original writing that we read, being that it is a very difficult, challenging piece of literature, and yet it is so familiar to so many people, in one way or another. From what I'm, as I listen to shares in groups, for someone to have been able to have the willingness to put this out is very admirable, and kind of encourages me to be less less hiding of my process, that I pretty much, and my parents did, flew under the radar. Other people's parents might have been bigger than life, and they draw attention to themselves. And so it's finding that middle ground where I get to honor myself and be seen, in a way that's respectful. I think it goes back to the ninth promise. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about this right now. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Marilyn. And Karen, coming here with you're not feeling 100%. Get better soon. Sorry to hear about your illness.
Thank you so much. It's the first time I've gotten COVID, and yeah, I'm hoping that it's nothing more than just an uncomfortable sort of a flu thing and nothing serious. So
Get well soon, Marilyn.
thank you. I've got lots to drink here with me.
Yes, stay hydrated and do all those good things. Zinc, vitamin C, and D, I think it is, they say to do. I'm wondering, since this is a recorded program, how well that silent beginning is going to go over. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't read the story. Anyone that came late, there's a link in the chat where you can read the story that was displayed on the screen for individual reading, Emotional Punching Bag, from the meeting in print area of CoDA.org. If you need that link redisplayed in the chat, please hold up your hand, say something, or put a note in the chat box if you would, and I'll redisplay those links for you. So journaling for me is a very important part of recovery. Part of, for me, my 5 building blocks of recovery: going to meetings, working the steps, traditions, and promises. Journaling, fellowship, and service are the 5 building blocks of my recovery. I don't think my recovery would have progressed very much at all without journaling. Journaling really helps me be able to look back, down behind me, down that road. Sometimes when I wonder, where's recovery? It's only in looking behind me and in rereading some of the things I've written over the years. I don't write a lot, but any journaling at all is a good thing to do. I encourage everyone to journal in your recovery. Anyone like to share their thoughts on journaling, possibly writing poetry, whether or not you have been to the meeting in print area or the CoNNections area of CoDA.org before? Is this the first time you're hearing about this area in CoDA? Share your thoughts if you care to.
David, I have something I wanted to share.
Yes,
I was
James.
talking to a friend this morning, and he had made a comment a week ago about how he had trouble with time. He couldn't figure out what it was, but it kept coming up. And I think it was a week ago, they had a weekly reading that comes out every Wednesday, and it was about how the young man had traveled with his parents during his whole youth, and as he became into adulthood, he couldn't figure out why he kept worrying about time, and it was always his parents were always very stringent about being a success and traveling and doing whatever it took to make money, and he felt he was doing something wrong if he wasn't doing something and moving, and it caused him to have these problems about time. So I shared that with my friend, and it helped me too, because at one point in my recovery, I kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? I kept telling my therapist, I have no right to feel this good. And after a while, I thought, you know what? I do have a right to feel this good. So these things, these weekly reminders, weekly readings, meetings in print, they bring this stuff out in me, and they help me recover. Because these are very personal stories. They come from people's hearts. And when I read things from other people that are so personal, I realize how not alone I am. And I keep writing. I keep writing more and more. And it helps my recovery. I wanted to share that experience with you.
Thank you for sharing that, James. I want to encourage people to take advantage of the links that I've put up to the CoNNections area of CoDA and to meeting in print section of CoDA. There are some really good stories there. And if you've never been there before, have a look. Yes, Kathy, I see your hand up. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you for the welcome. Kathy, grateful, recovering codependent. Journaling has been a fantastic part of my recovery. It's been the place where I have done most of my processing. And my challenge right now is just for the last 2 months, I have had surgery on my shoulder, which has made it very uncomfortable for me to do any writing. And I really missed the journaling. But that's the story about me. I want to just tell about an experience that I have had with meetings in print. I am on the Hospitals and Institutions Committee for CoDA, and frequently I receive requests from individuals who are in institutions. Most of them are penal institutions, asking for help having meetings. And the meetings in print have been a tool that I've been able to use to send to these who request the information. I've been doing this for a couple of years, and one of the things that happened is that until about a year ago, these meetings in print were not really very easily printable. I mean, as far as printing them out, and so I requested that the committee, if they could, make them available in a PDF format, and that has happened so that it's much easier for me to be able to print these out. And one of the things that's a limit in my mailing these things is frequently they are more than the 10 pages long, and a lot of institutions do not allow more than 10 pages in one envelope. So I sometimes have to send these meetings in 2 or 3 envelopes, but I don't want to have those that I'm sending them to miss out on the photographs. And just being able to read the prose and the poetry that is there. So I'm grateful for the service and the creativity that these meetings in print are the exhibit of. And my other question that I had is, would anyone who's present here care to read the emotional punching bag for the recording? So that's my share. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Kathy. Thank you for your service. And thank you for that question. I think it's an excellent question. I was thinking about doing that myself. Yes, is there anyone here who would, I'll share it on the screen again, if there's someone here that would like to read the emotional punching bag story and poem for us today.
Hand up.
Chandra. Excellent. Are you putting your hand up because you would like to read that story and poem for us today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great. I'm going to share first the cover of the story on the screen, and then I will go over to the poem, to the story and poem to share on the screen so that you may read it. And thank you for volunteering. Okay, and of course, this story we're reading is The Emotional Punching Bag right here. And now I have to stop sharing so that I can reshare. If you would read the full story and the poem, and thank you for your service.
It's my privilege. Emotional punching bag. I have written this poem as a tool to help me work through a lot of hurt accrued and held in over the years. Thanks to CoDA, I have finally found not only the courage to face my truth, but the language to express myself and my true feelings. This is in recognition to the inner child and the inner teenager who have an incredible amount of healing thanks to the program and all the beautiful souls traveling together in recovery. I will never give up on myself, no matter what. And each day I make that promise to myself and God. I am not alone and never have been, but my mind needs time to catch up with my heart and embrace the pain so that I can let it go and live life. Sending all fellows blessings of strength, hope, and courage for the journey, something I have come to experience as an adventure. To heal, I must be prepared to feel, and to grow, I must be willing to go through and get to the other side. Then I'll just need a scroll to keep going. Okay, emotional punching bag. See me there hanging from the ceiling by a rope. See me there bound, blindfolded, and gagged. See me there, helpless and powerless to the blows that come wave after wave. Feel me there, confused, lonely, and afraid. Feel me there, trapped, blinded, and silenced. Feel me there, beaten through and through. No place on me unbeaten. Imagine pain like this with no image, held inside just under the skin. Imagine all parts still broken, with no idea of where to begin. This is all I have ever known, and how I have always been. For the sake of not being abandoned, I'll engage in the exchange to be seen. The day will come when I'll say no, realize that enough is enough. But first, I must unhook myself, and place my feet on the solid stuff. I am more than just a punch bag. It's taken me this long to see. If I continue to treat myself as one, that is all I will ever be. Yours in the fellowship, Hannah H.
Thank you for reading that for us today, Chandra. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
That was well done, and thank you. Again, I go back to asking if there's any more comments or feedback from the people here today on whether or not this is your first experience with meeting in print, and also if you've ever been to the Co-NNections area of CoDA.org. Sharma, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Sharma, recovering codependent. And no, I had never heard of the connections before. It's right there on the CoDA website. So I'm glad to have had it pointed out. And so I will definitely be spending some time there reviewing some of the stuff. And so it looks like it's an interesting section. And I really appreciated this particular poem that was shared. It was a really great poem. And in terms of writing myself, I have done writing over the years, and then my ex-husband, he found my journal, so then I started writing it on the computer with an encrypted password, so I could write whatever I wanted to write, and he couldn't get into it. But I have found so much relief from writing, and it is very interesting to look back and see all the ways that God has brought things to me that I didn't even know I needed, and things that I had a heart cry for, but had forgotten all about that I'd even had that. And then later God has brought that, and just the growth and the ability to release pain and emotions and grief, and express joy, all the things that our emotions are. In terms of poetry, in my younger days, I was a little bit more into writing poetry myself, but not recently. But I thank you for this meeting today. Thank you for the topics that have been presented so far. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you for sharing, Sharma. And yes, anonymity and self-care and a sense of safety are such an important part of recovery. As I learned that my secrets keep me sick, things I did not feel safe sharing in a meeting, I began sharing, getting them outside of myself by journaling about them. Over time, as I found meetings where my sense of safety was increased and I felt safer, I began sharing little things at first, and the safer I felt, feeling safety in the little things I shared encouraged me to take greater risks. So journaling has been an important part of my recovery, and I do recommend that you write a little bit. If you are not doing it now, think about it. You don't have to create the great American novel. You don't have to write a whole lot. Sound bites. Start out with small things. Write them down. You can put them in the CoDA workbook, or if you are concerned about people reading your book, like I keep my journal in a separate book. I just reference the pages of the book that I'm writing about in my journal. That way I feel safe. Any other comments, feedback on writing, journaling in general, the CoNnections area and the meeting in print areas of CoDA.org? If you've had any experience with these stories, if you've been there or haven't been there, would you go now, and would you consider checking out these areas of CoDA and seeing if there's something there that you can relate to?
David, I have a comment.
Welcome, James.
Thank you. When I went to live by myself, I started journaling, and I have a whole stack of books. But one thing I realized after I was journaling for about 2 years, I realized how much better my handwriting got. As I relaxed and became aware of myself and started to love myself, I started to see my handwriting get so much better. And it was just a revelation to me to see that right out there on the page, and to realize, how my life had come together through CoDA. I wanted to share that. That was always amazing to me.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share a comment with us today?
And does
Chandra,
anyone have a suggestion for a topic for next month?
Okay, yes. We are welcome suggestions for topic.
Chandra?
If you would like to be a speaker at the fellowship forum too. And Chandra, I do see your hand up. Welcome.
David Chandra has her hand up.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm really glad that the
Must have been from
topic
before.
of safety has come up too. I had the experience of an ex-partner reading my journal, and it really set me back in terms of journaling is really important to me, and it's always been hugely helpful to me. But I found that after that experience, number one, I wasn't able to really appreciate the level of validate of hurt that it caused, and I just sort of like breezed through that experience without really registering the meaning of it for quite some time. And then it's only recently that I realized that I am pretty inhibited in what I write, and I've connected it to the fear that it's going to be read. And so now that I'm more aware of that and kind of taking it more seriously, that experience, I feel like at least it's giving me something to work with so that I can kind of tackle that and figure out how to move forward and be able to express myself fully again. So with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that thought, Chandra. Any other shares?
Yes, David, can I be heard? This is
Yes, that sounds like Kaga. Welcome, Kaga.
I'm on the telephone.
Yeah.
I was able to get in, but I wanted to just share on the journaling, and please feel free to say time. I sometimes can go on, but journaling was a fundamental piece of recovery for me. I don't think when I was doing it, I understood what I was doing. Kind of like when I was a kid, I kept a diary. And every page, it's funny, I found that the other day, it begins, Dear Diary, and it's a litany of complaints, from a 13-year-old. But that's interesting, some real heartfelt feelings. So I see this concept of writing my feelings down. And when I began my recovery, and we, of course, journaling, there were meetings about journaling, how to journal, I started to keep a journal. And I kind of got away from it. Life gets busy. Taking time to sit down and do that, it was hard with a family. Plus, I really, in early recovery, I was really in denial. I didn't really understand codependency, not like I do now. I should sit down and journal. I do write every day. Sometimes I draw. I do a lot of things, that I put on paper, and I keep it all around me because it keeps me safe. But what I wanted to say to get to the point of the matter is I have reread some of my journals, and I think it's probably way past time for me to let them go. But I've read them, the ones I wrote in the 90s. I had several books. So many of the things that I journaled about have come true. My sponsor told me, I was like, well, I don't know what to write about. Everything is, nothing was really good for me in early recovery. And my sponsor said, well, write about the things that you would like to see happen in your life. And I did that without any belief that it would truly happen. And I'm going to tell you, rereading them, I was amazed. Little things that I had just not even recalled. So this journaling piece, and of course poetry, if you have that gift, that's where it's going to come out. It's going to come right out on the written page. And I think for me, I love poetry. I love Wordsworth, Henry Longfellow Wordsworth, because he's a man from another time, another era, but he expresses his grief, his loss, his pain so poetically. That's, I guess, why he's a famous poet. And I have an appreciation for it. I'm probably not a poet, but I'm probably just whatever I am. Whatever gift I have, that's what I have. But thank you for letting me share. And yes, I am familiar with the Connections tab. When I worked, I was subscribed to the weekly reading, and it was such a relief to look in my inbox and have that reading, because it always struck a chord of, wellness, positive thinking, or truth, to come out of denial and to understand that I'm not the only one that's suffering with codependency. And I have not done a lot with it recently, but I'm hoping that, this type of a program will certainly spark the interest. So thank you so much, all of you that are involved in doing this very important work for service in CoDA. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Gaga. My name is David. I'm codependent. I want to recommend PMJ, Pray, Meditate, Journal. Next month's fellowship form is April 29th. We meet on the last Saturday of every month. The fellowship form is an opportunity.
David, we got one suggestion for a topic. If anyone else would like to add any, I want to get ahead on this because
yes,
that's
James.
how I wound up getting jammed up with the Connections Committee. So we want to get these topics 3 months ahead.
Yeah.
We appreciate anyone's help.
Yes. So next month's meeting is April 29th. We meet on the last Saturday of every month at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, except for Arizona. Well, actually, it is Eastern Daylight Time, Central Daylight Time, Mountain Daylight Time, and 12 noon Pacific and Arizona Time, Pacific Daylight Time and Arizona Time. Arizona and Hawaii do not use daylight saving time. Lucky them. And I guess that next month's topic, we'll have to wait for the tickler to arrive in your mailbox to find out what next month's topic will be. We'll close the meeting with the CoDA closing prayer, which I will share on the screen. If you would like to say along with me, the CoDA closing prayer. We thank our higher power for all that we have received from this meeting. As we close, may we take with us the wisdom, love, acceptance, and hope of recovery. Thank you all for being here, and participating in the fellowship forum. Hope to see you next month and in another meeting real soon. Take care. God bless.
Thank
Stay
you,
safe.
David. Thank you, James.
Thank you, David and James.
And I will now allow for video. If you would like to turn your camera on, let me stop the recording.